Good morning, everybody. Matt Moda here to give you my favorite NBA player prop picks. Today, we're talking Tuesday, January 16th, NBA betting slate. I'm going to have 6 plays for you guys to lock in. Pretty decent card that we have today. I do feel comfortable saying the splash zone is back in your life because we've had a pretty nice run over the last couple days. Now, yesterday ended up being a pretty frustrating day overall. We made money, so, always can't complain about making money, up 0.85 units. It just could have been so much better. Freaking Grady Dick scores 12 points in the first half, plays 7 minutes, scores 0 points in the second half. Absolutely brutal. I thought that 15 plus was easily going to cash. I thought the 20 plus also had legs. Didn't cash either. LeBron had 10 combined rebounds plus assists at halftime, had 5 rebounds, had 5 assists. Ended the game with 5 rebounds and 8 assists. So I thought that one also had legs, and it didn't end up coming to fruition. So, hey, we still made money. Can't complain on a day in which you make money, even though I just did. Let's hope that we have another good day today. On the entire season, that now brings our profit up like 10.86 units, I believe is the exact number, up a little bit under 11 units on the year. Considering how the year started, I'm pretty happy to be up 11 units. We've had a really good January after a really good December. Let's hope we can keep it rolling tonight. Again, 6 plays for you guys to lock in. Honestly, not a lot of plus money bangers today. That's just kind of how the card fell for me. I didn't want to I don't want to ignore plays that I liked just because they weren't plus money, even though I did really like them. So it's not a typical day that you will see on this channel, but yeah, we can get into it. I don't have a question for you guys today. I've already talked enough, and I think this is going to be a long one, so I don't need to waste any time. Just remember to like the video, remember to subscribe, remember to comment. All that stuff helps me out a ton. So 6 bets. I'm going to give you my official bets, and then I'm going to walk through a couple leans as well. One bet that I did lock in here in this Thunder versus 76ers game, I took Paul George. I took him on the rebounds. Now, I locked this in last night at 6.5. Obviously, that number is no longer available. You're seeing 7.5s everywhere. I would still take it for plus money at 7.5. Looks like the best offered price, aside from Bovada and Pinnacle, is plus 114 at DraftKings. But I would still take this number at 7.5 at plus money. So you can't get the 6.5 number that I got, but I'm okay with that. And again, the best offered price here is plus 114 at DraftKings. We see plus 110 at 365, plus 108 at Caesars. Obviously, take that number on DraftKings and check FanDuel. Unfortunately, FanDuel doesn't pull onto Props Madness, but FanDuel might have a better price depending on you're watching this. So, why is this a play? He's only hit it in 8 of 24 games. Well, first of all, RIP Kobe, 8 of 24. We got to look at who's playing. More importantly, we got to look at who's not playing. He's not. Joel Embiid is out of the lineup. Andre Drummond is out of the lineup. Now, it's only been 4 games, but he's hit 8 or more rebounds in 3 of those 4 games. And in every game he went over, he actually had 9 or more. So I honestly think that Paul George could be on double watch. If you want to take that, you get a pretty nice price on him to record a double-double. And the reason why I really like it, not only has he hit in 3 of 4 games, the one game he went under, he still had 12 rebound chances. He only collected 2. That's an incredibly atypical conversion rate. Normally you expect like 50, 55 to 60%, like between a 50 and 60% number for rebound chances to actual rebounds. Only got 2 of 12. And the other games, 14, perfectly acceptable. 17, perfectly acceptable. 15, perfectly acceptable. So if we just kind of look, all right, how does Paul George rebound when he has, let's call it 14 rebound chances, which I think is going to have 15 or more, but let's call it 14. He's hit that in 4 or 5 games, so it's only 1 extra game in which he did hit. So the success is there on the rebound chances, and when you look at the guys who are out of the lineup, Embiid and Andre Drummond, and it's a really good matchup. I mean, the Thunder do a lot of things well, but the one thing they do not do well is rebound. As you can see here, looking at Props Madness, they give up the 3rd most rebounds per game. They're honestly a top matchup for guard rebound props, for center rebound props, for forward, any position you look at, they are a good matchup. We've targeted the Thunder all year for rebound props, and I see no reason why we shouldn't continue that tonight. So Paul George, over 7.5 rebounds. Looked like the number actually just changed to plus 105, but you can still get plus 110 at Bet365. And again, I would check FanDuel because they had the best price when I last looked before hopping on. So that's our first play. Next up, we have a play and a ladder play in the Suns versus Hawks game. And we're taking Bradley Beal. I actually took him over 17.5 points for plus 130 odds at DraftKings. I put a full unit on that bad boy. And then I also took him for a half unit on 20 plus points. Because as you can see, his over-under is 15.5. He's hit that number 14 of 24 games at 60% hit rate. That's decent. We go up to the 17.5 number, 11 of 24 games, averaging 18. Obviously, the average doesn't change, averaging 18 points per game. And then only once has he landed between 18 and 19 points. So I like the plus money price on the over 17.5 and on the 20 plus. Couple reasons why I like this play. Number one, let's talk about the matchup. The Atlanta Hawks defense, A, they're terrible. B, they're terrible at guarding the ways in which Bradley Beal scores. Now, technically, Beal scores the majority of his points via spot up, but that's a little bit misleading because they moved him to the second unit. So he's playing a lot more without Devin Booker, a lot more without Kevin Durant. And in those situations, he's actually handling the ball a lot more, running a lot of pick and roll. So this number here is the important one. The Hawks give up the second most points per game to pick and roll ball handlers. That is how Bradley Beal scores the majority of his points when he plays without Devin Booker, which is a decent amount nowadays since they moved Bradley Beal to the second unit. And just look at how guards similar to Beal have performed against the Hawks. 7 of 8 have hit their over by an average of 3 points above what their over-under is priced at. Now, we'll talk about this. A player named Bradley Beal just did it against them. 25 points, over-under was 15.5. But Tyler Hero, 28 points. Desmond Bane, 23. Kyrie, 32. Steph Curry, 23 over under 26.5, the only one that went under. And then Poole did it 3 times in a row against the Hawks at the beginning of the year. So it's a really, really good matchup. And I want to look at the last 5 games. And the reason why, he's only hit it in 2 of 3, but let me just explain this for a second. This is when he was moved to the second unit. It was before this Sixers game. Since then, yes, he's only hit in 2 of the 5 games. But what I like are the shot attempts. 15 in this game, 13, 16, 10, and 12. So the fewest that he attempted was this 10 game against the Jazz. Just a bad game for him. 1 of 5 from deep, 4 of 10 from three-point range. Devin Booker went off in this game. It just wasn't Bradley Beal's game. But if we look, and he also, the last thing, he's played 30 minutes in every single game. 30, 31, 33, 30, 35. So if you look at games in which he's played 30 minutes, and we look at games in which he's taken at least 12 shot attempts, which is what he's done in 4 of the 5 games, at least 12 shot attempts. He's hit this number, I think it was, he's done it in 9 of his last 14 games, averaging 20 points per game. So when he plays the minutes and he puts up the shots, he gets to 20 plus points. And this is what he's been averaging with since he's been moved to the bench. Now, again, look at one of the games he just did it. Was against this Atlanta Hawks team where he made 11 of 16 field goals, which is a little bit, obviously, that he's not going to make always 65% of his shots. But when he's on, he can. And I also like it from a shot zone perspective. So he takes 26% of his shots from the above the break 3, 27% of his shots in the restricted area. So over 50% of his shots are either at the rim or above the break. The Hawks allow the 4th most points per game at the restricted area and the most points per game in the above the break three-pointer. So where Bradley Beal scores is where this Hawks defense is weakest, aside from the corner. So it's a really good matchup for him. I'm not surprised he went off for 25 last game. We were actually on this last game. We were just on the points plus assists. So Bradley Beal over 17.5 and Bradley Beal 20 plus points is our second play of the day and our first of 2 ladder plays. Next up, we're going to have 2 bets in this game, Pelicans versus Bulls. The first one that we're taking here is Vooch. I'm taking him over 10.5 rebounds. Now, you can actually get a better price than I got. As you can see here, a couple books offer this price at plus 100. I bet this last night, and this was a situation where I did not get the best number. I got this at minus 109, so that's what I'm going to track for my own numbers. But you can get a better price than what I got, so you should obviously lock that in. If I like it at minus 109, I definitely like it at plus 100. And again, just so I can leave this up here so people can tail, BetMGM, Bet365, and ESPN Bet are the legally operated books that have that number. So, hit this in 13 of his last 24 games, averaging about 10.5 rebounds per game. 10 if we look at the closer to the entire season. This is also a play on the matchup. Vooch will collect rebounds against teams that are bad at rebounding. And if we look, 6 of 10, similar to Vooch, have hit their rebound prop over. Now, these back-to-back games are always wonky. Like Valanciunas hit it in one game, missed it in the other. Bam, missed it, but then we see Jokic with 13, Sabonis with 20. Wemby did miss it. Claxton hooked on the under 9.5, had 9 rebounds. Mobley hooked on the over. Vooch hooked on the over, and that's important. These two teams played. Vooch went over, and Anthony Davis had 14 rebounds. The reason why I ended up really liking this play was because if we hover over the Pelicans, we see they allow the 5th most rebounds per game just in general. Now, unfortunately, this doesn't look position specific, but if we go by position and not just similar, like by props madness is players with a similar profile. By position is just the center position. As we can see, 10 of the last 15 have hit their rebound prop over. And if you look at games where Vooch has played teams that are in the bottom 10 at rebounding, he's hit this number in 8 of 11 games, averaging over 11 rebounds per game. He's hit it 3 games against the Wizards. He just did it against the Pelicans. He did it at the beginning of the year, so obviously that was a long time ago. But he did it against the Pelicans. He had 18 rebound chances in that game, and he's hit it in 5 straight against teams that are not great rebounding teams. So Vooch is not a guy that's always going to collect a bunch of rebounds, but in the good matchups, he will. And this is a good matchup. With all the injuries in and out of the lineup, the Pelicans have remained a good matchup for rebound props. So this is our 3rd bet. Our 4th one is in the same game, just on the other side of the court. And it's also our ladder play. So we're going Dejounte Murray. We're going over 7.5 assists. So this is actually best offered at FanDuel. So FanDuel, again, doesn't pull here on Props Madness, but FanDuel is offering this at -120. And then I also took him for a half unit at 10 plus assists as well. And that was best offered at bet 365. So if you're ever confused about what I'm betting, just put it, or excuse me, at the end of the video, I put a screenshot of all my bets with the odds and the books. So if you just want to fast forward to that, you can. Obviously, I hope people watch the video because that helps me out. But this is, do not look at the screen here. This is best offered on FanDuel. So I mentioned the Pelicans have had guys in and out of the lineup. So it's really hard to kind of parse the data. But we're going to look at games in which he's played just with Zion. He's only played 2 of them. Now, he's only hit this number in 1 of 2 games. That's not amazing. Number 1, he did it in pretty difficult matchups. Like the Celtics are 4th in terms of assists allowed, had 8 assists. So we cashed the mainline play, 14 potential assists, perfectly acceptable number. And then he had only 6 assists against the Timberwolves, who allow the 5th fewest assists, but he had 17 potential assists in that game. If you're telling me he's going to get 14 to 17 potential assists, I'll feel really good about him at least getting the 8 number. And the matchup here is also incredibly juicy against the Bulls. The Bulls are, they allow the 2nd most assists just in general. They're 1st in terms of assists allowed to point guards. They've been a defense we have targeted all year for point guard assist props. 9 of the last 15 have hit their number. But the guys that went under, you can't look at just by Props Madness or his playmaking profile. But the guys went under, like Jordan Poole, 2 of these guys that went under doesn't really count. Fox, not exactly the same type of playmaker as Murray. And then earlier it was Drew Holiday and Peyton Pritchard. But the guys that actually have high numbers, like Monk, had the same over-under as Fox, had 9 assists. Halliburton, who's been really off this year, 13 assists. Chris Paul had 9. Brunson went under, would have just given us the hook. Trae Young had 13. Dame had 12. They've been a defense we've targeted all year with point guard assist props. And if you look at games in which he's played with CJ McCollum and Trey Murphy without Brandon Ingram, it's been 16 games. He's averaging almost 9 assists per game, has hit the over 7.5 in 11 of 16 games, and has hit the 10.5 number in only 5 of 16. So a little bit riskier there. But we look at teams in which he's played with those 2 guys without Brandon Ingram that are bottom 10 in terms of assists allowed. All 4, literally all 4, and he's hit 10 plus in all 4 as well. Now the sample size is getting lower and lower, so obviously you kind of take that with a grain of salt. But with CJ McCollum, Trey Murphy without Brandon Ingram, teams that are bottom 10 in assists allowed, double-digit assists in all 4 games, with 18, 17, 15, and 22 potential assists. So if we just look, his floor in potential assists in this game, I think is probably 15. If we just look at games in which he's had 15 potential assists, and let's go 15 to 20 because 22 is a little bit of an outlier. He's gone over 7.5 in 4 of 6 games. He's gotten 10 in, excuse me. He's had 10 plus assists in 4 of 6 games, and he's gone over 7.5 in 5 of 6. So against this Bulls team, and the reason why they're such a good matchup for assists is because they cannot guard play types that lead to a lot of assists, like the pick and roll. They're off screen, which is an assisted play, dribble handoffs, which is an assisted play, and pick and roll man, which is an assisted play. They're all below average with 30th in terms of the pick and roll man. So absolutely worth a ladder climb on Dejounte Murray, over 7.5 and a plus assist. I believe that's bet number 4. So yeah, we got 2 left. I have a couple leans in this Kings-Bucks game that I didn't bet, so we're going to head over to the Nuggets versus Mavericks. And I took Jokic. Excuse me. I took him on the triple-double. Now, if you just bet his assist, you can get over 9.5 for roughly even money. Plus 100 odds is the best offer price you can get on over 9.5 assists. But if you take him to record a triple-double, you can get that at plus 165 odds at both Fliff and Hard Rock, and plus 163 odds at Caesars. Basically, all we're betting here is that he's going to get to 10 or more assists because the points and rebounds is as close to guaranteed as it can get. And we're getting so much better odds, which is why I went with the triple-double. Now, points, he's literally never had fewer than, I think, like 13 points in a game this entire season. Like, if you go to, like, 11.5, he's done that in every single game. If he doesn't score 10 points, it's because he's got hurt, and we can't help that. Rebounds, his over-under is 13.5, with the over pretty heavily juiced. I mean, minus 125 towards the over. And he's hit over 9.5 rebounds, so 10 plus, in 75% of his games. So that is very, very, very likely that he hits 10 rebounds. He's also done it in all 3 games against the Mavericks. So very, very confident he's going to get to 10 rebounds. What we are essentially betting here is that he is going to get to 10 plus assists. And I really like this matchup against the Mavericks. The way the Mavericks play defense, they do allow a lot of points to post-ups, which is how Jokic scores. They don't allow a lot of points to pick and roll men. They don't allow a ton of points to the center position, like 4 of 8. So it's, 50-50 in terms of similar to Jokic have hit their point prop over. Now, Jokic did do it twice, 33 and 37 points. So he smoked them. So honestly, PRA could be a good play on Jokic as well. But I just like isolating it to triple-double for the plus 165 odds. 7 of the last 15 centers in general have hit their point prop over against the Mavericks. Jokic did miss it last game. But the reason why they give up generally fewer points to centers is because they give up a lot of assists. Now, if we go to just how NBA defenses guard position, we're going to look at 2 different sources here. We're looking at centers and we're looking at assists. On the entire season, we see the Mavericks give up, looks like that's the 6th, 7th most assists per game to centers. We look at the last 30 days. That number goes up to the 5th most assists allowed to centers. And we look at another source here just to give you guys multiple data points. Centers, assists, 4th most per game, centers allowed by the Mavericks. It's their style of defense. And Jokic, look at what he's done against the Mavericks this year. He's hit this 10-plus number in 2 of 3 games. But the most important thing here are his potential assists. 18, 23, and 22. He had 22 potential assists last game against the Mavericks. Only had 9 actual assists. That is an incredible outlier. If he's getting 22 potential assists, more often than not, he's probably going to have 12 or more assists. Like, let's just look at games this year where he's had 22 potential assists, just because I'm curious. That was the only time he went under. Now, 22 is a lot. Let's just say 17 potential assists, which is more likely what he's going to get. He's had 10 assists in 14 of 15 games, in which he's had 17 or more potential assists. And he's done that all 3 times this year against the Mavericks. 18, 23, and 22. So Jokic, I'm incredibly confident he's going to score at least 10 points, collect at least 10 rebounds. The bet here is essentially that he gets to 10 plus assists. And I just think it's a phenomenal matchup for Nikola Jokic and his assist prop. I like the fact that he just missed it against them last game, but his potentials were there. I like the fact that Kyrie Irving is back tonight, so obviously the Mavericks hopefully are a little bit better scoring and are able to keep up. Even though they won by 11, this game actually was pretty close. So Jokic triple-double, that's our 5th play. And then lastly, our last bet of the evening is I went with Deni Avdija. I went with him over 15.5 points. Now this is another situation where I did not get the best number. I locked this in last night at minus 120. You can actually get it at minus 105. So obviously, if I send it out at minus 120, I definitely also like it at minus 105. So if you're betting this right now, you can get a better price than what I got. Deni Avdija over 15.5 points, minus 105 odds at DraftKings. Couple reasons why we like this play. We've talked about Avdija a lot in the past week because Jeremy Grant has been out. He's played 9 games this year. He's gone over 15.5 in 6 of those 9 games. That's a very nice number, 6 of 9. The important thing here are the minutes and the shot attempts. If we look, 12 shot attempts, 40 minutes. 15 shot attempts, 37 minutes. 9 shot attempts, and this is the only game he took fewer than double-digit shot attempts, and he still had 9. 33 minutes. 36 minutes, 14 shots. 43 minutes, 14 shots. 13 shots, the only game in which he played fewer than 30 minutes, but he still took 13 shots. Okay, excuse me, 27. It was the only game he went under in both. Excuse me, only game he went under and also didn't play 30 minutes. Anyways, 27 minutes, 15 shots. 34 minutes, 12 shots. 37 minutes, 14 shots. So he's playing at least 30 minutes. He's taken at least 10 shots. So if we look at games this year where he has taken at least, let's just call it 10 field goal attempts. Let's not even do the minutes. He scored over 15.5 points in only 12 of 21 games, but he missed it in 4 of the first 5. So if we just take those games out, he's done it in 11 of his last 15, averaging over 18 points per game. And even if we don't take those games out, he still hit it over 50%, almost 60% of the time, 12 of 21 games, averaging over the number we need him to get. So without Jeremy Grant, he's shooting more, he's playing more, he's scoring more. And this is an excellent matchup against a Nets team that is perfect in ways in which we want Deni Avdija to score. He scores the majority of his points via spot up, 4th most points per game to spot up shooters. After that, transition. He scores the second most of his points via transition. The Nets allow the 5th most points per game via transition. Free throws. He gets to the line a lot. The Nets allow the 4th most points per game via free throws. That's the top 3 play types in which he scores. And then after that, yeah, he runs some pick and roll. The Nets don't give up a lot of points off of pick and rolls because they give up a lot of points to spot up shooters and via transition. So teams aren't running a lot of pick and roll against them. So it's an excellent matchup against the Nets. Even if you just look at this graph here, 4th most points per game to his play type. That's what the DPT means, defensive play type. The 8th most points per game to defensive shot zone. That's what the SZ means, shot zone. And they just have the 6th worst defensive net rating in the entire NBA as well. So a lot of reasons to like Deni Avdija. I didn't quite want to ladder him up to 20 plus points because he scores between 15 and 20 a lot. Like if we look at just the entire season, and we're not even looking at any filters, just the entire year, he scored 16 or more points in 15 games. And if we take this up to 20, he's only done that in 5. So a lot of the times, 9 times, he's landed between that number. So I didn't quite feel as though a ladder was in play for Deni Avdija, which is why I just took the over 15.5. But that is our 6th and final pick of the video. Couple leans that I wanted to give out for you guys that I didn't actually bet. Donovan Mitchell, his point prop is just so low. Now I understand why. He's averaging 23 points per game on the year, 22 in his last 24 games, and he's only gone over this number in 11 of 24, and he's only done it in 3 of his last 9 games. The reason why I like it, there are 2 reasons. Number 1, the Cavs just lost by 15 points to the Pacers. He took 17 shots in that game, only made 7. If we just look at games this year where he's taken, let's just call it 15 shots. He scored over 22.5 points. That number goes up to 60%, and he's averaging about 25, just under points per game. We take this up to 17 shots, which is the exact number he took last game. He's done that. He scored over 22.5 in 16 of 20 games and scored 25 in 13 of 20. So the matchup is actually not as good as you would think against the Pacers. I mean, they're 14th in defensive ranking against his play type, which is pick and roll ball handler, 9th to transition. That makes up over half of how Donovan Mitchell scores. It's either running a pick and roll or in transition, and they're either average to a below average matchup. And his shot zone that leads to 49% of his points is the above the break 3-pointer. The Pacers have the 4th best defense guarding above the break 3-pointer. So the matchup isn't quite there. The volume is there. And Mitchell's the kind of guy where like he can score against any defense he wants. It doesn't have to be a good matchup for him to score. It just depends on whether he wants to or not. And he hasn't wanted to a lot this year. If you think that he will, then he's going to go over this number and it's going to be a good bet. I just couldn't quite get there. Andrew Nembhard with Halliburton out is a good bet. I mean, he's doubtful. He's not going to play. He hasn't played a game this year without Halliburton, so we don't really have a ton of data. The Cavs are a good defense, and they're good at guarding the ways in which Andrew Nembhard scores. Like they're the only time they're below a good matchup is isolation, which 7% of his points. They don't give up a lot of assists or rebounds. They give up the 11th fewest assists and the 5th. So they're average in assists and rebounds, but they're not a good matchup. So if you think that Nembhard is going to have increased usage without Halliburton, then that would make sense. You could also go Benedict Mathurin. We just don't have any data on that, so I don't kind of want to force anything. And they're pricing that in, right? I mean, they're pricing Benedict Mathurin at 18.5. He's over under, or he's hit that in 6 games of 24. So actually, he's played more than that. He's hit that in 17 of 40. So really good at the beginning of the year, really bad recently. So nothing quite there. Zion, I think, has a good matchup for points. Good and bad, depending on where you look. If you look at the play type, the Bulls, even though the defense is an abomination, isn't amazing. 14th in terms of free throws, 20th in terms of isolation, 16th in terms of transition. It isn't until we get posting up and pick and roll ball handler, which is only 20% of his scoring profile. But if you look at the restricted area, which is where Zion scores 65% of his points, they're the worst defense guarding the restricted area. So some matchup makes it look good. Some matchup doesn't make it look as good. He's only hit this number in 3 of 8 games, but it's been a weird year for Zion. So I totally understand the logic. I already had 2 bets in this game, so I didn't feel the need to add a third one. And then another one that I wanted to talk about is De'Aaron Fox in his points prop is decent. He's hit this. It's actually, you can get over 25.5 at a lot of places. So he's hit that in 4 of his last 5 games, 5 of his last 6, and it looks like 7 of his last 8 of his last 10. So he's been playing a lot better recently. He has really good history against the Bucks. He hit it in both games against the Bucks last year. The Bucks, that was last year. This year, the Bucks give up. They're a little bit of a better defense, still 6th most points per game. It's pick and roll ball handler, 10th most via transition. The thing that scares me off with Fox is you never know when he's going to decide to score. And they got a healthy team. I mean, only Malik Monk is a game time decision. He's probably going to play. And if we look at games in which should be a good matchup for him, teams that are bottom 10, guarding pick and roll ball handlers, which the Bucks are, 5 of 12 games, averaging fewer points per game. So that's not me saying like, oh, you only want to target De'Aaron Fox in the bad matchups. It's me saying we don't really know when it's going to be a good scoring game for Fox. There's no kind of translation between the good matchups and good games like there are with a lot of guys and why we end up betting them. So that's why I did not end up betting De'Aaron Fox. I think it's a good look, but I'm just going to go with the 6 official bets that you see on the screen here, including the ladder plays as well. It's where the ladder plays actually makes it 8 bets, but we're looking at Deni Avdija over 15.5 points, Dejounte Murray 8+ and 10+ assists, Paul George I got over 6.5 rebounds. On the show, you can only get over 7.5, so you're going to take the over 7.5. Vooch over 10.5 rebounds, Brad Beal 18+ and 20+ points, Jokic triple-double. Those are the bets that you see on the screen here that I just gave you. Would appreciate it if you're watching this, if you could like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Everybody bet responsibly and have a good one.